Mihawk's strength is a topic that is highly debated within the One Piece community, with fans labeling him anywhere from Commander tier to Admiral tier to Yonko tier. He's someone that fans can never seem to agree on. There are numerous scenes and statements that can be interpreted in different ways. Today, I'm here to offer my perspective on one of Mihawk's most iconic and most debated scenes, Mihawk versus Whitebeard. Before we get into the video, guys, please remember to rate the video, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more One Piece content. Leave a like if you like this video, a dislike if you dislike this video, and don't forget to leave a comment stating your stance. I love discussing One Piece with fans that are as passionate about the series as I am. Also join the Discord where we regularly discuss the series, and follow my Twitch as well where we stream gameplay and discussions. Alright guys, let's get into it. To start analyzing this scene, we first need to understand the type of character Mihawk is. What better way is there to start than at the beginning, with his introduction? From the very beginning, we see that Mihawk is a very proud and somewhat arrogant fighter. In his first encounter with Zoro, he mistakes him for all the other wannabe swordsmen in the verse, assuming he would be no different from anyone who has previously challenged him. He states that he isn't some beast who uses a cannon to hunt a rabbit. Rabbit referring to Zoro, who he doesn't see as someone worthy of fighting with his full strength. From here, he pulls out his knife, stating that he doesn't carry any smaller blades, and proceeds to absolutely embarrass our favorite green-haired aspiring swordsman. Right from the jump, he's established as someone who looks down on others. Because of his title of World's Strongest Swordsman, he believes himself currently to be the pinnacle of swordsmanship. That isn't to say he doesn't believe anyone can surpass him, as he very clearly tells Zoro to surpass him by the end of their encounter, but until that time comes, he places himself above others. Now that we have established Mihawk as someone who is extremely prideful, we can start getting into the meat and potatoes of the situation. I want to start off by stating that just because Mihawk is arrogant, it does not mean that he doesn't show respect where it's due. He is acutely aware of who Whitebeard is and his reputation as the world's strongest man. If anything, you can consider Mihawk's initial attack as a formality to Whitebeard. While being fully aware of the reputation of the man who stands in front of him, he states that he wants to gauge the distance between himself and the legend. Now, the interpretation of this part is very important to my overall point. There are different ways readers can choose to unpack this scene, and depending on how it's delivered, multiple interpretations can be seen as valid. The way I personally choose to interpret this line is that once upon a time, he viewed Whitebeard as someone who was above himself. This is very natural considering Whitebeard's legendary status. As someone who's dedicated his life to his craft and obtained his very own world's strongest title, it's valid for him to want to measure the distance between himself and the legend. Upon launching his attack, Mihawk simply remains calm and observes the situation. Clearly, this is not his strongest attack or anywhere close to it, but it is strong enough that not just anyone can block it. While the attack is traveling across the battlefield, we can see that Whitebeard's crew is worried about him. This makes sense as they are the ones who are truly aware of what condition Whitebeard is really in. Jozu, being a person who is uniquely equipped to handle top tier cutting and slashing attacks, steps in to protect his captain. I want to make it a point here to say that this is not an anti-feat for Mihawk, something we'll revisit later in the video. We've already established that Mihawk can be extremely prideful, but there's another aspect of his character that people often do not take into account, his shrewdness. This is not only backed up by his other epithet, the clairvoyant, but we also see this on display during multiple instances. During his first encounter with Luffy and Zoro, he was able to eventually recognize them both as people who are capable of accomplishing amazing feats. Mihawk also uses his shrewdness to accurately gauge the strength of his opponents, which is how he knew what level Zoro was at upon challenging him. Is it that much of a stretch to assume that Mihawk was able to properly assess the situation upon witnessing Jozu stepping in for Whitebeard? In his prime, Whitebeard likely would be able to handle this level of attack without much issue, but this isn't a prime Whitebeard. His best years are behind him and his crew knows that. Jozu's actions could have all but confirmed these suspicions that Mihawk might have held. So why would Jozu step in to protect him if Whitebeard believed himself to be capable of blocking the attack? Why would Whitebeard accept Jozu's actions if this was the case? The answer is that Whitebeard likely could not have handled this attack in his current condition, and this conclusion is backed up by the fact that he couldn't even consistently use Haki during the war, which is a fact that his crew is well aware of. Throughout the course of the war, Mihawk would have had more chances to test himself against Whitebeard had he believed that Whitebeard was still superior, but Mihawk never makes it a point to challenge Whitebeard again. Isn't that strange that a character with the world's strongest title of his own would get his attack blocked by someone tiers below who he was truly looking to test himself against, and just accept that he's no better than the third or fourth strongest commander on that crew? It is strange, which is why it's unlikely to be the case. The more likely conclusion that Mihawk could have come to is that Whitebeard is clearly beyond his prime and thus is likely below himself. It's incredibly consistent with his character as well, given that he has no interest in dueling Shanks after he lost an arm, and as such is not at his best as a swordsman. This isn't a character who looks to take advantage of a weakness. He's someone who looks to compete with rivals who are at their best so that he can continue to prove that he truly is the world's strongest swordsman. Whitebeard in his current condition was unable to provide that challenge for Mihawk, and given the type of character he is, he simply lost interest. Now that I've stated my stance on the subject, I'd like to get into more contentious matters. The first subject we'll address is why failing to cut Jozu is not an anti-feat for Mihawk. We'll address it from two different angles, the first being that he simply was not looking to cut Jozu. Our supporting evidence for this point comes from way back in Alabasta during Zoro's iconic scene with Mr. One. He has a flashback where Kosuro explains that a swordsman can cut through metal, but also not cut paper with the same sword if he so wills it, not only strongly implying haki, but also the intent of a swordsman. Mihawk fired his attack at Whitebeard, a character that can only use his flash and haki to defend himself, not Diamond. But let's say that you fall into the camp that believe Diamond is unable to be cut within One Piece. If you follow this line of thinking, then it's illogical to say that a hard counter to a character's abilities is an anti-feat. This will be the equivalent of calling Superman weak because he's powerless to do anything against kryptonite, a substance that full stop counters him. In order to be considered a true anti-feat, he would have to have shown a display that is far below what we know he is capable of doing. Being unable to overcome a hard counter doesn't fall under the category of an anti-feat, because it's something that's designed to narratively keep a character in check. Another point we have to address is Whitebeard's inconsistent use of haki. Not only does Marco point this out directly within the story, but it's also confirmed to us visually when he failed to dodge an attack by one of his crew members that is significantly weaker than he is. Arguing that this is only applied to observation haki is dishonest, as it ignores the fact that he could have also used armor haki to defend himself against the attack. This is crucial, as we see later on in the story that Blackbeard is able to stop a slash nearly identical to the one used on Whitebeard with armor haki, showing that it is indeed possible to block his attack if your haki is strong enough. Ultimately, while this topic may still remain contentious, I wanted to insert my 2 cents on the matter. Placing a prime Mihawk over Whitebeard, who is years removed from his prime, doesn't sound like it should be a controversial take from where I stand, but I also understand that Whitebeard is one of the most well-loved and respected characters in the verse. From a power scaling perspective, placing old Whitebeard at the low end and top tiers makes sense when you take into account his condition. Prime Beard vs Mihawk is a topic for another day, but for today, give Mihawk the respect he deserves. World's strongest titles aren't handed out to just anyone. Anyways though guys, we've rambled on enough. Once again, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe if you want to see more One Piece content, and be sure to follow my Twitch and socials, links to everything in the description. That's gonna do it for this one guys, we'll chop it up next time, deuces.